What's case? Part 2, I guess. Alright, so for me, humbly, the point here is, why does this case fascinate us so much? Is it only a gossipy thing going on? Or is it that we try to figure out things about human behavior? So the audio of the so-called jail confession recently got out, and I think I went over the approximately 5 hours of it. I'm not quite sure though, because I've heard it a lot before going to sleep, and I fell asleep a few times, so I'm not quite sure that I've got all the information required to make a deep analysis. Also, it's not my job here. But yes, I would like to point out a few things that, caught my attention. And also I would like to know what you guys think about those things. First of all, do you think that it was crime that just happened in a rush, like in a rage rush, or something where he got mad at Shannon and they had a discussion, so she wouldn't accept him leaving her or whatever, and she was threatening him to not be able to see the kids and stuff? I don't know if we'll ever know, because this guy does very rarely tell the truth, so there's not much that we can really trust that goes out of her mouth. Hi, fly. So it's kind of weird, but so I'm not saying that they didn't have a discussion there that morning, but I tend to perceive him using that excuse, the fight excuse, the heated discussion issue, whatever he gets the chance from day one, and this is literally day one. So I think that fit him in the first place. That excuse of them having a heated discussion would make him look as if he just had a rage and he couldn't control himself for a long time now. And he's still using that excuse. Again, I'm not saying that they didn't have a heated discussion, but there are many, there's a substantial amount of evidence showing that Shannon didn't fight back, and I'm sure there's no way to discuss that she was a good mother. You can discuss whether she was exposing the kids a lot too much or herself too much, their private lives, and that could be really annoying. So we get that, but that doesn't make her an absolute bad mother. I think just by seeing a few videos and knowing what we can tell about her through those videos and stuff, we can almost all of us agree that she was a dedicated mother, and that apparently the exploitation, if you will, that she did of her daughters appearing on live streaming and stuff was because nowadays where communication is changing so much, and now it's like, it seems like, to be able to buy stuff or sell stuff, especially if you have such a level, if you need such a level of income to like be able to maintain such a big house, which now we know they were still paying, I think, not quite sure though. If you want to maintain that level of style of living, you really have to be like selling and producing money like all the time. And nowadays I was saying that media changed so much, and now it's like media popes are not media icons are not necessarily like TV hosts anymore. It's like people, like unknown people are able to be the media themselves, right? And so while you show your life, or you show off your life, you are able to attract clients and actually make sales. So that's why apparently, and as far as I'm concerned, she would be live streaming herself and the kids and the husband and the house in order to, you know, share like a recipe and show a way of living, and, you know, try to connect with people like you had to have for those kind of direct sales. You're supposed to have, I think, like a direct connection. Well, the word says it, right? Direct sales. So you have to have like a very intimate connection with the customer whatsoever. So apparently, like, showing them off like that would be a part of being intimate with the customer in a way, and I'm not justifying it or anything, I'm just trying to analyze it as objectively as possible, but it seemed like that experience of feeling that familiar smell to it when you watched one of her videos, it seemed like it would be a way to paradoxically make ends meet money-wise for this family. And so exploiting the girls would be a way of feeding the girls, in a way, if you know what I mean. So I guess what I want to say here is that I don't agree with those who will judge her and say, well, because she was streaming her life like that and exploiting the kids and being so annoying with the camera, which actually I think she was really, but and I don't need to say that doesn't justify like a murder, but what I mean is I think that doesn't make her a bad mother or anything. So getting back to the moment of the 13th, I think that the fact that she didn't fight back being pregnant, and that's what I mean, I think that everything takes us to think that this guy killed her while she was sleeping for many reasons. One reason is that we have enough material. I think we've got enough evidence to suggest us that he planned it beforehand. I don't know if months, but certainly days. I'm sorry that the interviewers, so that was Tammy and Graham. See, I don't know if they were like CIA or Colorado Bureau of CBI, I guess, something like that. Colorado Bureau of Investigation, I think. But I'm pretty sure they're detectives, and unless I've fallen asleep, I haven't heard them asking for the dummy photo, like for the doll photo with with the plastic sheet over it. And I think that's bad. That's a shame, because that was very telling. Why would she, and what do you guys think? I'm very curious about it. Why would someone send a picture like that in this context, except if they were, again, and there's a channel that explained it very, very well and thoroughly. This is the channel is Live Abuse Free or Live Abuse Free, because I don't know if it means that it's like a stream of abuse free, so it's Live Abuse Free program, something like that, or if it's like Live Abuse Free, go and live abuse free. I don't know. I'm sorry that I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but this girl, she was getting into these things, and she has a great video in which she's going through all the like last weeks and couple of months of Shannon's life, and I will say Shannon Ruzek here, because I think that's something again that I think we should start calling her by her maiden name, and also I would rather not call Chris, I would rather call him Christopher, even though it's a little long and uncomfortable, but I think that in a way, if we call him Chris like that, it's like, I don't know, he's a murderer, and I don't feel comfortable calling him Chris anyway. But the thing is that this girl of this channel, Live Abuse Free, which if you have a chance, check it out. I wouldn't be promoting it though, because I have like, I don't know, 50 views and she has probably thousands, so she doesn't need me. But humbly, from this humble corner of the world in Argentina, I have been following the case passionately, I have to say. And if someone's watching and haven't watched that channel yet, check it out. Certainly check it out. Anyway, she was going through the last weeks and months of Shannon's life, and how he was psychopathing her, if that verb exists, but how this girl explains very well. And shout out to you. I don't know, you're by the way, you're in such a lovely place, and I'm so curious to know where you're at, like at a beach or something. And so it's nice to watch your videos with the beach there and the birds. And also, but I don't know if what makes you so expert on narcissism, because I don't know, it's not that I'm asking you for a title or anything, but it's just out of curiosity, how come you know so much about narcissism? Anyway, she explains very well the narcissistic behavior, and I think this guy is definitely a narcissist with a small amount of stuff that I know about narcissism. I think I can tell. And I'll turn on the light, sorry. So she explains very well how he would play her, like how he would 1 second say that he just doesn't feel it anymore and that everything changed, and like fill her with desperation like that, and then the following second he would go on and like make her feel like maybe they could make things up. And so it was very confusing for her. It was almost like a torture. So this girl shows this girl from Live Abuse Free, she shows, you know, a few of the messages between Shannon and friends of hers, and pictures and stuff, and she shows this picture of Shannon, I think 4 days before her killing, and she shows, you can tell in her face how stressed she was and desperate. Just like, I mean, she was very pretty, so I'm not saying that, I'm not trashing her or saying that she looked awful, but like in an awful day she would look like myself, like every day, and like, you know, but really for how she would present herself and take care of herself and look good in general, you could tell that she was devastated at the time. So in a situation like that, I wouldn't think that she would let the other person kill her like that, not only because she had physical strength, and that's her own father saying that she was a fighter, that she had strength in her body, but also, again, considering how good of a mother she was, and considering that she was pregnant, I think she would fight back and fight back and fight back, not only for her life but for her baby. So this Christopher Watts saying that instead of explaining what he's been asked for explaining, how was the moment where you strangled her, and him, instead of explaining the details about it, which I think the detectives did such a great job in general, especially I think manipulating him and playing friends with him or something like that. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think this was obviously not genuine. They were like playing him, but in this case I think they missed it. They didn't have the speed to make him give away the details of him killing her at the time, like was she asleep or not, and how did you do it? How did you do it in detail? And so he started, like, I think I remember that he started explaining it, so to speak, but then when we were waiting for him to give us the real details, he would go like, oh, and at that moment when I think about that moment, I think of a quote of the Bible, and the part where I think Jesus said, or God said to Jesus, but then God and Jesus are the same thing, so you get the idea. Jesus, I think, would say, when they were like crucifying him, he would say, forgive them, for they know what they're doing. And that he associates that moment with that quote from the Bible. And I think that, first of all, that's a great getaway from answering the question, really, and explaining and going, thoroughly on the subject. And second, how can you in a million years think that someone who's being killed in that moment, if she had the chance to fight back and she was conscious, in other words, if she wasn't sleeping and she was conscious, how a person from first grade at school would even think that that person would look at the murderer and go, forgive him because he doesn't know what he's doing. If you have the chance to fight back and defend not only yourself but your baby, why would she, play that role of looking at him like saying, oh, forgive him because he doesn't know what he's doing? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think that she was asleep, most certainly. And that's what he will not assume. I think that this is the way Christopher Watts lies. This is purely perception, right? I have no I cannot prove this scientifically to you, but from my perception, what I think is that he starts to tell the truth like further and further away in time. In other words, he started like not telling any truth, like the same day, the very first day he would lie, as we all know. Then he would give like half lies, half truths. He wouldn't tell the truth, the complete truth, right? But he would say lies related to the killings, but then he would say other truths, like he would say that they were not getting along very well lately, and then he would accept that he had a lover, but he didn't accept that right away. He accepted that when he was busted. So he would start to say truths or mini truths as time passes and as he is being caught. And this case is no different. He's giving us more material, but it's because he's already in jail, so there's not much he can do to change that. So what does he have to lose? He's telling us more, for sure. I think the chances that he took the girls with him in the truck is very likely. It's very, very likely to be true. Not quite sure though, because you never know with this guy, but I think it's probably pretty true. But he's still not giving us the whole thing. I mean, he still has little parts, super big parts of the story that he's telling us that are not completely true. Meaning, I think that he probably convinced himself that he killed her in the middle of a fight. Because I think that probably not only you can't, I couldn't live if I did something like that, but if he slaughtered his whole family, but not only that, and the kids, oh my God, but he did it while they were sleeping, like he did while she was sleeping. I mean, it's so atrocious what he did to the girls, like Bella watching. I mean, I don't, it doesn't need my comment because you've already guys heard enough, I think, and it doesn't need much explanation to be able to understand how atrocious it was. The way that these girls, you know, approached the end of their lives. But I think there's still something that he doesn't tell us. So he's not gonna tell us that he killed Shannon while she was sleeping, because that would be cowardice at its, you know, full potential. So I was talking this morning to my mom, and I don't remember how we were talking about. I said something like, well, you know, I think you're adapting pretty good to this situation. Try to think about things that could be worse. So it's not that bad what you have going on right now. It's pretty bad, but it's not that bad. It could really be worse. Think about it. Don't you think that it could be worse? And she said something along the lines of, yeah, it can always be worse. Everything can always be worse. And I was like, I don't know. There are things that cannot be worse. I mean, yeah, they can be worse, but I mean, and I immediately thought of this case. Because I thought, like, what could be worse than slaughtering your family the way you did? Well, maybe confessing that you killed one member of the family while she was sleeping, like a pregnant woman while she was sleeping. I mean, that could be worse than saying, well, we had a fight and I got into a rage, if you know what I mean. That's what I think about the situation. I think that there's probably always worse, and he's not telling us. And the oil tanks, even, maybe, I mean, he took an oil can, so maybe he was planning to burn out the oil tanks. I don't know. So yeah, Mom, you're right, it can always get worse. So I just have this feeling like he's not telling us entirely the truth. Oh, and by the way, because I'm very unorganized, but I always get back to what I was saying. Why isn't North Korea charged for obstruction of investigation? She certainly deleted a lot of messages and stuff that were very important, and also I think that she deleted like parts of the dialogues between her and Chris, and then when in the middle of the examination, like cross-examination, I think, or yeah, like interrogation, they would ask her why. I mean, she would go like, I don't know why this doesn't make sense. Like, this dialogue doesn't make sense, and I don't know why. And you knew why, girl. Because you've deleted parts of it, so it doesn't make sense. It's like one says, it looks to me like she didn't, I mean, now that I'm thinking, it's like that she didn't delete like the whole history of chats between her and Chris in order not to get caught, like, oh, you've deleted everything, so you're maybe guilty of something, you're hiding something from us. Instead, she like deleted little pieces, I think. I'm not quite sure though, because if you do that, it probably shows, right? It says this was deleted, but well, maybe it was, and that's why detectives found it. But so anyway, I think the dialogues went between her and Chris went like something like this, like, hi, how are you? Fine. $200.27. Oh, are they charging that for what? I miss you so much. Like, it wouldn't make sense, and they would find out that there were parts of the dialogues which were deleted. And so that's just one reason, among others, that make me think, like, why wouldn't they go deeper on her? Like, also the fact that she would go, like, remember when she said that like that day she was with someone, like a friend of hers, Jimmy, I think, and they would ask her about Jimmy, and you know, because she would be explaining that when Chris got to her telling her that his family were missing and stuff, she would be hanging hanging with this friend of hers, and she would be like, for me it was weird because she was like behaving like she's like the victim. If she didn't have anything to do like that directly with this, which I think probably she doesn't have anything to do like directly. I'm not one to believe that she was there at the time and that she had something to do like with the physical killing of the kids. If she had something to do with the idea building up in his mind, well, that's another issue, and if you're interested, I can touch on it, but later. But obviously, she knew that he was married and stuff, and you're playing with fire if you're messing around with a married man, and she knew about it. And I think that in the interrogation, she said that at the beginning she didn't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but there are many things going on. One of the things is that also she said that she didn't know, like she found out about Shannon later, whereas evidence shows that she Googled her like a year and a half previous or something. And so about this Jimmy guy, I was saying that so I don't know, this is a tricky one. It's like she has the elements to her that make her a victim, but there are also elements in her that make her like a propeller of what happened. But what I mean is that in the interrogations, she had this attitude of, I'm the victim and I'm doing you a favor by coming here and explaining because I have nothing to do with this, and don't stress me out, and yeah, I would need counseling and psychologists because this is terrible, and what about my job? And she would be like worrying about it, which again, if she didn't have anything to do, I kind of get it, but on the other hand, it's like, yeah, maybe you didn't have anything to do like with the murder itself, but it's not that you have nothing to do with it again. So, and she was saying something in the lines of, oh, Jimmy, my Jimmy friend, and they would go like, oh, can we get the number of Jimmy and so we can ask him a few questions? And she would be like, no. You please leave Jimmy out of this. He has nothing to do with this. And again, she was doing that, and Christopher was doing that with her. Like when they finally ask him and tell him, when they go like, we know that you have a lover, and he's like, okay, I'm not proud of it, but she has nothing to do with this, so leave her out of this. I want to protect her. I mean, guys, you don't get to protect anyone. It's not that you decide who policemen are gonna interrogate. Unical don't do that too. If you've obstructed the normal circulation of justice, so to speak, and you've hidden information, and if you were with someone at the time that things happened, and police want to find out, to cross-interrogate that person and to be able to asking that person if he was with you at the time, and so on and so forth, being able to tell if you're telling the truth, I think they have the right to do that, and you don't have the right to decide whether it's your decision or not for him to get interrogated. So I found all that kind of weird, and that's why I'm saying that it's not against her. I have nothing personal against her, nor do I wish anyone jail time at all in life, and that's a whole other subject for another video, but I think it's very much related to this issue. I think that but I think that if you're dealing with this, you have to it's not for you to decide whether your friend's gonna be interrogated or not. The victims here are the 4 people who died and their families, so that's what we have to keep in our minds, and instead of saying like, oh no, do not interrogate her or him. I don't think you have the power for that, just my opinion. But on another level, we should think about whether we agree with justice as it is, whether we agree with the system, whether we agree with jail itself. And I know I'm getting into a rough one, but I really do believe that this case is in general, but this case in particular, and when I say these cases, I'm naming a few of the ones that I felt more compelled to know more about. And I'm saying, Jeffrey Dahmer, Jodi Arias, Ted Bundy, those cases. Aileen Wuornos, and this couple that would kill girls. I don't remember their names, but in these very pinnacle cases, I think that what we search for when we spend so much time, following these cases and listening to stuff, especially these times where we have body cams and policemen. I mean, it's incredible that we have the footage of the very day and the very moment where he went back home and he was caught in a way and he couldn't. We have all this footage. It's incredible how much we can get into the case, and also considering that Shanann was FaceTiming or streaming stuff all the time, live streaming stuff, and so on and so forth. So we have so much information, and what compels us maybe, or at least in my case, and finds me right now on a Sunday, doing this video and sharing with you guys, and all the time, watching and figuring out what you guys think about it, exchanging our opinions on this, goes further away from the impact of the crime itself, which of course it's the first thing. It's we are all, there's a horror to what happened, and we can't believe what happened, and we have all that information, and maybe what makes us passionate about it is that maybe instead of choosing to watch series about crimes or whatever that are fiction, we have these real things going on, and so I find them much more compelling because it's real. These are not actors, and in general I tend to be a person that feels more compelled to, whether it's a book or a film or a documentary, well, documentary obviously, right, but I mean some film or whatever footage it is, I feel compelled to, through the footage, zoom in or get closer to human behavior. And I think that in this case we have so much footage. Again, not only the crime is incredible, but and terrifying, right? But because it's multiplied by 4, and there's blood going on, and there are kids, so it's incredible. But also we have so much footage, live footage and stuff, that we have so much material that we're able to figure out lots of things about, again, not only the case itself, this guy, he was narcissistic, probably psychopath, probably sociopath, and all that stuff, and his family, his mother, oh my god, the family, how everything, they have so much to do with the crime, the family, but his family, that is, right? But I mean, I think that in a way, whether we can tell consciously or not, what we're doing is we're approaching philosophy or sociology, again, human behavioral stuff, that it's so interesting, in a bad way, but interesting at the end of the day. And also it makes me think a lot about, jails and, the judicial system, and the system in general, whatever the name is, post-capitalism, whatever, because everything has to do with everything. And this is where I wanted to make a video, but then I spoke a lot, and now it's very long, so I don't think I'm gonna get into it now. But what made me think I'm gonna make a video too is because I haven't seen anyone yet, maybe it exists and I don't know it, writing or doing videos about whether or not jail is the answer. And what I mean by this is, what I'm interested in is, why did this guy do that? And I think many of us have that situation that we don't know why he did it, and we feel so, again, compelled about it. But why did he do that in the first place? And when I say that, I'm even thinking about the animal kingdom, the other members of the animal kingdom. And we know that in the animal kingdom, in the jungle and stuff, like in the savage animal kingdom, in the jungle, and in the woods, and in their natural state, like many parents or mothers will eat their cubs, their offsprings. They will eat them up, maybe for different reasons. That's where obviously biologists and stuff could come here and explain, but as far as I'm concerned, it has to do with, sometimes, the weaker one gets all the blame, and sometimes, when they can't make it in the natural world, they get eaten or beaten up, or maybe when they're old in different species, they will get beaten up. My beloved Jane Goodall found out also a lot about the chimpanzee behavior, and let's remember, chimpanzees are like our cousins, and she found out that chimpanzees would sometimes not only get together and bully other members of the tribe, so to speak, but also they would do cannibalism. Eventually they would eat other members, whereas it's because they're weaker or because of external situations, like maybe lack of food or stuff. So in the natural world, it's not a matter of being good or bad. It's not that. It doesn't work that way. Like chimpanzees are bad because they eventually can eat up one of the members. It's not about that. It's about behavior, like natural behavior. And nature many times brings to the surface things that are very weird and we just can't explain, right? Many things. And I wonder if this case, as many others, but let's take this one as an example, because I also think it's so interesting how many comments and people, analyzing the case, this case brought. So I think that's positive, not for a morbid reason, but it's great because it puts us in a discussion between each other, of us, where we say what we think about it, and when we say what we think about it, we're saying what we think about human behavior. That's what I mean. That's the point I want to make here. And I'm so curious, because what I think is like, so we as humans are supposed to be different from the other animals in the sense that in our case, yes, because we don't like eat each other, most of us, right? Some tribes do eat each other, and not only tribes. I've just named Jeffrey Dahmer, but you get the idea. We're supposed to be like rational beings that, because we're rational, we choose not to eat each other. But that's so tricky, because I've just named Jane Goodall, and just as she found out that chimpanzees would eventually eat each other, she also found out how chimpanzees would use tools to get food. Like they would use a stick to be able to get ants from their nests. And so when she found out that, all the theories of the people, that the Darwinists that talked about evolution and all that would differentiate us from the other animals because we could make tools. What she found out obviously put on the spot those theories, like, okay, those theories are crap, because chimpanzees can also use tools to provide for them and to create new things. So what I mean is, long story short, it's like, are we so different from the other animals as we think? Or maybe it's easier for us and more comfortable for us to think that we are much superior to other creatures. In this very case, I find that as it's okay that we stop and think, whether he's a narcissist or what kind of game he was playing, or what, we all are so curious about what was he thinking, what was his project in doing this, what was the idea, what was happening in a brain to do something like that. I think we can't forget the fact that maybe he doesn't even know, and maybe it's about human behavior. And here I'm not justifying him. For sure he had the tools on his mind to tell whether it was good or bad was what he was doing. But what I mean is, I don't know, remember that guy that went like in the 60s, I think, to the roof of the University of Texas and shot a lot of people to death, and then he killed himself? I've heard that he wrote something like, obviously before he died, something in the lines of, I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel this, I don't know, tendency to go and kill people. And I don't know why. So please open up my head and, just analyze my brain to see if there's something wrong there. And what I've heard at the time, not in the 60s, but I mean, when I was investigating, quote unquote, that case, which I went into briefly, but I did, was that they actually found out that something was like biologically, like physiologically wrong in his brain that could explain at least a part of what was going on in his behavior. And it was something about, I don't know, one part of the brain, like, it was something like, one part of his brain was like in a position that would like smother the other part. Something was going on there that one part would asphyxiate the other. So actually they did find something wrong with his brain. And I think that in the Jeffrey Dahmer case, before, after he was killed in jail, I think someone tried to do something similar. They tried to open up his head and find out if there was something wrong on his brain. And I think the family neglected it, like they denied it. Like they had to have the authorization of the family, and they couldn't, the parents, like the father wouldn't approve on that. So we have the doubt, which I think was pretty bad. And I don't know about laws or anything, and I really don't mean to be disrespectful to this guy, the father of Jeffrey Dahmer, which I don't know if he's even alive, but so I'm not hating on him or anything. I can try to understand his grief, but I don't know if I 100% agree on the decision of asking the father. I think that considering the amount of people that Jeffrey Dahmer killed and tortured, well, not torture, well, sort of, you know what I mean, but at least the state would have had the power to say, you know what, I'm sorry, but we're opening up this guy. We have to find out whether or not he has something in the brain, because it's important for for humankind to find out if we have that brain, and the guy is already dead. I mean, let's recycle it in a good way. Instead of torturing so many animals each year for experiments that are not necessary for the animals to receive so much pain, with the excuse that it's human evolution and investigation. And then when we have like a guy like Jeffrey Dahmer, we have his brain ready to go, and we have to ask his father for authorization, and I don't think that was a good one. Anywho, I know that I'm really, getting off the rails now here, but you get the idea. I'm trying not only to comment on the confession itself, but try to figure out if we can think a little bit more about, through this case, we can think a little bit more about like human evolution or whatever, and try to find out if this is not only a case of someone being so bad, but a case of human behavior that, again, he can't even explain. He can explain it more than he does already, because he could tell us like, okay, so I hated on her because I was frustrated because she was very successful or whatever, or I thought that he can explain more that than he's doing already. So I know that. I'm not saying that he can't explain. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no much for him to give us than what he's already giving us. I know that he could give us more and he's not doing it, or at least I feel that way. But what I'm saying is that maybe there's a point that he achieves where he's not able to tell us more about it, and maybe we should think about the other, other animals, as I was saying, and thinking that maybe, this behavioral thing towards the kids, especially in these cases where kids are involved, that we can't explain through rationalism, but they happen every day, everywhere. These cases, it made it to the media because, again, the footage and the fact that these guys were like sort of good-looking people, and right. But maybe I don't mean to get too biased here or anything, and I'm not condemning the fact that it got to the media. I think that that's in a way positive, in a way maybe for the family, the Ruzek family, in the sense that it gave them more power to fight, to get him to court or whatever. I don't know. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's good or bad. What I'm saying is that these kind of things happen every day, everywhere. Maybe if it's low class, like here in the country I live in, like in Buenos Aires, in my city, it happens like in the periphery every day, stuff like this, like guys, burning up their wives, or, vice versa, stuff like that, or people raping nieces and then killing them and throwing them away like garbage. And it's not that it's a rare case, it's Chris Watts' case, unfortunately. Another question that I have is if we shouldn't say like the Ruzek girls case or something, because sometimes, and also it happened in the Jodi Arias case, sometimes I think like, or in the Lennon murders, right? So in the Lennon murder, when we talk about the guy who killed Lennon, and it's better for me not to call him, I mean, he doesn't have a name for me, because maybe he was expecting that, he was expecting to be famous. And I think that in this kind of cases, we have to name the victims, not the perpetrators, because that gives them notoriety. And in a way, it's like when in Rolling Stone, in the cover of Rolling Stone, there was this guy who killed, he supposedly killed a lot of people at a marathon, I think, and this discussion was taking place, like, do we want them to look like, famous, cool people, for young kids to maybe, the first time they feel some sort of a range, they go like, okay, so if my life's miserable, but I can be famous through killing my family, and get fed for the rest of my life, and maybe go to the chair, because anyway I don't care, I would rather do this. So I think that that's a little, brackets thing here, where I think, like, I don't know if I want to call this case like the Chris Watts case or the Ruzek girls case. I don't know. Let me know what you think about it. But the point is, I really got off the trails this time. But the point is that maybe it would be interesting if we thought, when cases like this occur, we think about human behavior. And do you think that jail is the answer? I mean, do you think that jail will change his way of thinking whatsoever? Or, I know I got into a tricky one, because if we think about human behavior and we compare ourselves with other animals, I was comparing ourselves to chimpanzees when they like eat each other or something. And the truth is that most likely when they do that, that is chimpanzees, it's not a premeditated thing that they will be calculating beforehand, but something that happens pretty spontaneously most of the cases. Whereas in this case, there's a lot of previous thinking. So that's why it's so tricky. But the fact that it was probably premeditated, does it mean that it was not human behavior? Maybe it's part of this human behavior. Maybe the human behavior, it's not only the killing itself, like the smothering and the strangling, but the fact that he thought that he wanted to do something like that. That's what I mean. Like the rejection, like somebody commented on one video, and I'm sorry to this person that I didn't get to write down the name to, paraphrase him properly, but put something in the lines, in a comment, in the lines of Chris Watts is so by structured, so to speak. Like, he has two things going on all the time. It's like he's a good person and a bad person. He's a very smart person and an imbecile, like in the same person. He's a loving father and he's the worst father ever, who will feel probably detached from his kids and end up doing whatever he did, what he did, right? He's a good husband and the worst husband. He's a good lover, and he sends like these. I'm adding, right? But in that concept, I'm taking that concept from that person who commented, and I think it's very accurate. I think that too. That's why I'm so intrigued about him. But it's like he will be like an excellent lover to NK. Like, he will send her lovely letters and cards with hearts, heart-shaped stuff, saying how lovely she is and how he wants to have lots of firsts with her and stuff. But then, on the other hand, or the same hand, the narcissistic guy who's, playing her, like, he's saying that he wants to have lots of firsts with her, but then he's saying that he didn't want more kids. So maybe as a girl who's meeting a guy and starting a new life with a guy, if I'm a single woman and I'm meeting a guy who sends me like a heart-shaped card and says that he would like to have lots of firsts, more firsts with me, first times with me, I would assume, if I'm like in the middle of my life, of my projects and stuff, and I don't have a partner, I would think like maybe he wants to have kids with me. In fact, they discussed that at a certain point. She said that she wanted to give him a boy, but apparently, but he tells that to her, but then on the other hand, he despises the pregnancy of Shannon's, which is for another chapter again, but it was so diabolical how he played her, because he wanted that baby at the first moment, and then he rejected it. He played with her psyche so much, and in a way I think he was doing the same with NK, because he would send these kind of messages like, I would like to have lots of firsts with you, but then he would say that he didn't want more kids. He was okay just with Belle and Celeste. So he's like playing everyone. I think that's a factor of narcissism. But so I really have to wrap this up because it's going to be too long otherwise, and I don't think nobody's here listening anymore. But also one thing I forgot when I got off the rails talking, and I was saying that in relation to whether he tells the truth or not, and basically I think he does never, or very rarely. When I was trying to explain how I perceive that he builds up the truths, like he gives us less truths, and as time goes by he gives us like more truths. Think about the fact that, for instance, when he first assumed his guilt on killing Shannon, because he saw no escape, that's why he used Tammy's idea of saying that he killed Shannon because she killed the kids. So it's like, if he gives you something, he gives you a little or a lie or whatever is convenient for him, but not the real truth. And also, I don't see any remorse on him, even to this day, at all, especially considering what he did with Shannon, that he kept on saying that she had killed the kids and that therefore he had to kill her. And so a long time he's been, I don't know if a long time, but in a very critical period when decisions were taken, he would make her look like she was the bad guy here. And I think that he still has some kind of, I don't know if to say hate towards her, but some kind of rejection towards her. I don't really see any, I don't feel that he's regretting anything. What is a mystery for me is why did he kill the kids? I mean, it makes more sense that he killed Shanann. It doesn't make any sense, right? But I mean, considering like the context. So I have a lot of thoughts about why he killed the kids, and I won't get into them now, but if you're interested, please let me know. Alright, so anyway, I'm mixing up things, and I'm mixing up, human behavior and stuff on August the 13th, and our own compelled to our sort of obsession with this case. So I'm interested in all that, and also I'm interested in, again, jail. Like, do you really think that, I was starting to ask this question and then I forgot, but do you think that jail is really the answer? I mean, is he going to change his mind because he's in jail? Does jail change anything at all? Is jail the ideal thing? I mean, I would answer like it's definitely not the ideal, but I think it's the less worse. And I'm very interested in trying to find out, because I'm not convinced about jail. I don't know. I think that, again, to talk about good and evil when we talk about human behavior, it's tricky. But I think it's easier for us to say he's a bad guy, let's kill him, because it's more difficult to try to understand human psyche in a more complex way. And I'm including myself in this. I couldn't be able to do that, but I definitely think that the ideal thing would be that psychologists and biologists and detectives and the system and the anti-system and we all get together. It's obviously utopic, but to try to find better ways. I don't know, maybe him doing some kind of social work to try to do something useful. I don't know if to putting him, feeding him for the rest of his life. I don't know if that's the answer. Also, what I think is that, and maybe this is not for this guy's case particularly, but in cases where the person in jail has really had a rush of rage, and so that person has to spend the rest of his or her life in jail. Do you think that's accurate? Do you think that we, as chimpanzees that we are in a way, should live the rest of our lives without the possibility of freedom if we made a mistake, which sometimes it's not completely voluntarily?